Hi, I'm Jacob Hornberger, Libertarian candidate for president. Recently, Democratic Party presidential hopeful Robert F. Kennedy Jr. appeared on Libertarian Dave Smith's popular podcast, Part of the Problem. In that interview, Kennedy provides a fascinating insight into how different big government, big liberal, welfare state Democrats are from us libertarians. Right at the beginning of the interview, Kennedy starts extolling the virtues of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. He says that unlike people that were suffering under dictatorships over in Europe, that the American people had nothing to fear from their government. Quoting Roosevelt, he said, "The only thing that Americans had to fear was fear itself." Is he kidding? Roosevelt launched a reign of terror against the American people as part of his scheme to nationalize gold. Gold coins and silver coins had been the official money of the American people for more than 100 years. It was the monetary system called for under the Constitution. And in one fell swoop, Roosevelt, without even the semblance of a constitutional amendment, nationalized gold. And he told the American people, you have to turn your gold into the federal government within 30 days because if you don't, we're going to come after you with a federal criminal indictment and we're going to incarcerate you in a federal penitentiary for 10 years. And they went after people. For example, a very prominent lawyer on Wall Street named Frederick Barber Campbell, they had indicted with a federal criminal indictment because he was taking the position that this is my gold, it's my money, it doesn't belong to you. People were scared to death. They were flooding the federal government with their gold coins. And then there was Roosevelt's infamous National Industrial Recovery Act. This was a fascist government program that put American businesses and industries into cartels. It was straight out of the fascist playbook of Benito Mussolini in fascist Italy. And as part of this scheme, Roosevelt came up with the Blue Eagle emblem that storefront owners were expected to display in their storefront windows. And if a store owner opposes fascism and said, I'm not going to do it, they went after him with a vengeance. Roosevelt's supporters would openly condemn him and ostracize him and organize boycotts with the intent of destroying that business to send a message to everybody, you better get on board. And people were scared to death. Everybody was displaying the Blue Eagle for fear of losing their businesses. Don't forget that Roosevelt's the guy that is responsible for the transformation of America's economic system to a welfare state. This is how we got Social Security, which, as everyone knows, is today is the crown jewel of American socialism. And it inspired Lyndon Johnson's Great Society programs of Medicare and Medicaid, all of which Kennedy is firmly committed to as a big government welfare state Democrat, along with the income tax that funds it. In fact, Roosevelt's son, Elliott Roosevelt, later said that his father, Franklin Roosevelt, was probably the first president to use the IRS to intimidate people into supporting his programs. And then when the Supreme Court was declaring some of this socialism and fascism unconstitutional, Roosevelt came up with his infamous court packing scheme, where he was going to pack the Supreme Court with his cronies so that they couldn't do that anymore. And while the plan failed, it did obviously scare the Supreme Court to death because they crumbled after that, and they effectively held that never again would they declare any of Roosevelt's socialist and fascist programs unconstitutional, and they never did. Now let's give credit where credit is due. Kennedy takes some good positions on some issues: healthcare mandates, the JFK assassination, corporate capturing of regulatory agencies, Ukraine. But fair enough. But when it comes to welfare state socialism, the heritage of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, big government, big liberal, welfare state Kennedy is right there, firmly committed along with his Democratic cohorts to the further destruction of the principle of economic liberty of the American people. I'm Jacob Hornberger, Libertarian candidate for president. My campaign website is jacobforliberty.com.